Good afternoon. Welcome to our second season of Lunch and Learn presented by the Charlottesville Police Foundation and the Charlottesville Police Department. My name is Gail Milligan. I'm the Executive Director of the Foundation. We are so gratified for our continued program partnership with CPD that offers insight for the entire community to understand more about community in relation to policing and the law. We also appreciate the time and effort all of the presenters have invested in bringing this information to us. And for our second season, we continue to enjoy the support from the Batten School of Leadership and Public Policy and from our, and from our host, Andrea Henry. The Lunch and Learn series is an outcome of our community engagement and is part of our core mission to inform and connect. In each session, presenters will offer unique insight to their work and answer questions you have about that work. Before we begin, I want to share a brief overview of our work at CPF. Simply stated, the Charlottesville Police Foundation serves the community by serving the police. Much has changed everywhere since the pandemic started. We've had to seek new ways to be present in the community, but that hasn't changed our primary goal to improve the quality of life in Charlottesville by offering a community partner for our police department. The foundation promotes excellence in police services by investing in programs that enhance the department and yet are beyond the reasonable reach of the city's budget. We reward excellence by celebrating the successes of our department and the skills of its officers. We strengthen the connections between the department and the public through outreach programs and community events like this ongoing Lunch and Learn series. In addition to adapting our community programs in 2022, the CPF is focusing our attention on the recruiting and retention efforts of CPD. The CPD is now down 30 officers, which leaves 88 sworn officers to serve the community. This has created a critical need for intensive recruiting outreach, and the CPF is working with the department to craft a robust recruiting campaign to attract new talent. Another new program we're involved in is supporting a mental health crisis awareness campaign. The campaign highlights how the mental health crisis affects all communities and the first responders who serve them. Our constant goal remains to serve the officers and to facilitate a deeper connection with the community. Now I'd like to introduce our presenter. I'm very excited to introduce Detective Jill Salyer of the Charlottesville Police Department, who will provide an overview of the forensic unit. Detective Salyer has been with CPD since December 2013. In 2019, she attended the Department of Forensic Science Academy in Richmond, Virginia, and became a forensics technician. A note, you can add your questions to the Q&A section on the bottom of your screen at any time, but we'll hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Jill, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Gail. Like Gail was saying, I'm just going to do an overview of the unit and how we process crime scenes. So in a nutshell, you will, throughout this presentation, kind of understand how I learned how to process crime scenes and how I respond to scenes and what equipment we might need and utilize within the unit. So our current staff of the forensics unit, we have one forensics sergeant marshal, one forensic detective, that's me, and then we have 8 evidence technicians, which they're currently still on patrol, but they'll also either process their own crime scenes if they need to. They will assist me, especially on call outs, bigger scenes like that. And we have some on daylight, evening shift, and also midnight shift. And we have 2 forensics unit support specialists, Diane and Lars, as seen in the picture right here with our forensics van. They help us with putting evidence into PETs, putting it into the actual location of where it is downstairs. So they handle the evidence after it's been packaged and collected. So role as a forensic sergeant, hopefully one day I'll be that. So responsibilities is basically making sure I'm doing my job correctly, making sure I'm trained in all of my duties and responsibilities, making sure he also makes sure the technicians are trained up as well. He writes a lot of policy and procedures for our unit, especially for a lot of destructions we do with evidence. He deals a lot with the CAs and what evidence we can destroy with cases that have already been resolved and stuff like that and have already been to court. He's obviously in a lot of communication, with patrol and investigations, making sure we're doing our jobs correctly, especially on call outs and everything like that. And when we do get called out, he is usually the primary contact that is contacted, and then he'll either call out me and other evidence technicians if we need those. So my role from day to day, I will, if I need to process a crime scene, I'll document and process it. That is my main job as a forensic detective. I oversee all the work that is completed by our evidence technicians on patrol as well. So they'll put together case file folders and take photographs of the scenes that they've already processed. And when I come in the next day, I'll review those case folders, those photographs, and I'll meet up with them. And if they have any critiques or anything like that, tell them they did a good job. Anything like that, I will let them know. I review all the death scene checklists. So that's another main job of mine is if we do have a death, a suspicious or natural, I review it. I make sure the proper paperwork was filled out. And I also get in contact with the ME in Richmond if that needs to be done, or if I need a death scene or death certificate, I'll get in contact with them. I do roll call training when we can, just make sure patrol is up to date with certain, policies and procedures, especially from DFS with packaging and what they can and can't take to the lab. I'll update them with, fingerprint powder processing because they'll do a lot of that on their own without evidence technicians. So I just try to make sure I get into roll call and teach patrol guys as well. I do monthly training also for the technicians. We try to do that once a month if we can. If not, we can't. If we can't do it in person, I'll try to find an article or a video for them to watch just so they stay up to date with their abilities and responsibilities as an evidence technician. We have new hires for evidence technicians. I'll usually do 40 hours of training with them. So they basically learn the job throughout the week and do a lot of practicals along those lines as well. I also try to help out Sergeant Marshall with destroying evidence as well, and also entering evidence into pets, which is what Diane and Lars mostly does. And I also help investigations out with a lot of search warrants. If they need evidence collecting, I usually collect it. And my camera takes really good photographs. So they usually ask me to take a lot of photographs at the scene. So I usually do that for them as well, injuries, or if it's just collecting evidence. And I also do a lot of inventory for our unit, just make sure we have everything that we need just in case. Before I go into the notification process, just a little bit about me. I did graduate from East Carolina University with a 4-year degree in criminal justice, and I did minor in forensic science. So I kind of knew I wanted to go this route. CSI was definitely my favorite show, but we all know it's nothing like that. But I do like the collection of evidence and how important it is with a case. So I did minor in forensic science, kind of knowing I wanted to go this route. So just about the notification process, we do get called out. I got called out yesterday morning around 1 a.m. for a scene. So we are on call. Our rotations is Wednesday to Wednesday. So we're on call for that length of time. We can get called out whenever, whether it's 1 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. We got to answer that phone call, unfortunately, to respond to a scene. So you'll have point of contact, which is usually Sergeant Marshall, unless he's on vacation. He'll usually direct me to do that. We have a primary, which is 3 of us. So it's me, Haug, and Stein, and they are also DFS graduates. So we have the more, I would say, advanced training than our evidence technicians currently on the street. So us 3 usually can handle major scenes by ourselves. And then we have the secondary ones, which is mostly just the evidence technicians on the street, which have more training than patrol, but not quite as much as the DFS graduates. So they can still handle minor scenes, and they also come out and assist us as well. And we also have the support, which is only Diane and Lars, just in case the major scenes happen and we need their assistance. So the shift supervisor usually will contact Sergeant Marshall and let him know what scene we have, what the location is, and if we need personnel to respond. So if he needs further personnel, he will call one of us. So he'll call us early in the morning, late at night, whenever it is, and he'll let us know what the scene is. So some incidents that require notifications, you know, death scenes, you got homicides, suicides, victims under 30 years old, anything really suspicious, we usually get notified of that. Violent felonies, you know, assault with serious injuries, robberies, shots fired, especially abductions. We have sexual assaults that we get called out for as well. And yeah, so the point of contact will determine, obviously, if we need further assistance with any of that. Some equipment. So you see, we have pictures of our forensics van, inside of our forensics van, and also inside of our trailer. It's very hard for me to drive the trailer, so I hardly use the trailer. But if we need to, we can hook the trailer up to the van for further equipment. The van, I've driven that several times to scenes. That is all equipped with everything we need. We just basically just have to grab our camera, but that is a very good tool to have. So if we need those items, I personally have a key, but there's always a key downstairs in forensics that we can utilize too. So we'll just grab those if we need to. And then when we arrive on a scene, what we usually do as a forensics detective, we'll question the first responding officer and supervisor, because usually we're getting called out. So we want to know what they saw, what the call for service was, where they responded, what they saw, and just things along those lines. Because like I said, we're getting called out to a scene that's already been secured. We speak with other forensics personnel on scene if there is some. So they have further training than patrol. So maybe they saw something that patrol didn't see. And then we determine if the scene is secure. So if we do get called out, the scene should be secured with evidence, police caution tape. If we need to make it bigger or smaller, we can determine that when we get there as well. And a big thing is we need to get our organization of thought as well. You know, what kind of scene do we have? Is it raining, or, you know, it's snowing now in April, so it could be snowing as well. So we just have to determine those things. Do we need further equipment or anything like that to help us process the scene? And communication is one of the major things as well. I don't need to be just in communication with my sergeant. I need to be in communication with investigations and patrol as well, and make sure we're all on the same page as processing the crime scene. So this is how I do process a crime scene. We have the 3 phases. It's called systematic approach. The 3 phases are, you have the initial phase, collection phase, and your final phase. And this is my job in a nutshell. So you have, during your initial phase, you know, you do your overall photographs of the scene, whether it's, you know, a residence, a house, or even a parking lot outside, your approach to the scene. Then you also begin taking notes. That's very, very important. Take notes when you arrive, and then you also initiate your rough sketch as well. I'm not the best drawer. I've definitely learned over the years how to master that skill. So you definitely need to start all that as well. And then we have the collection phase, logical progression, meaning you want to start with the evidence that's closest to you. You don't want to walk into a scene and pass evidence along the way. So you want to kind of start from beginning to middle to end in that. But let's say there's an ID that investigation really needs. You can go ahead and collect that first if you're not destroying other items of evidence. We also take photographs in this one too. We had your mid-range and your close-up photographs, and we also measure each item of evidence so we can later put it in a court presentation sketch if need be for court purposes. We also have the final phase, which is the more challenging phase because it takes a lot more time. You have your bloodstain pattern analysis, trajectory, latent print processing. We measure furniture in this phase as well because all evidence should be collected by then. Overall measurements, you have your final search and collection. Make sure you don't leave any equipment behind. That's very important as well. So make sure you collect all your stuff. Then also fresh eyes search. You know, you get called out at 1 a.m. and you might not be done until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You need a fresh set of eyes to definitely check that scene. and make sure all equipment and evidence has been collected. And then the last part is determine whether to release or hold the scene. That's very important too. That usually comes from the sergeant to see whether we can or can't release the scene. And we also get investigations back out on the scene as well to make sure everybody's on the same page with collecting of evidence. So I did put a case study in here. It was a shots fired. So officers responded to an address within the city for a verbal disorder, arrived on scene, spoke with a couple of residents saying they did hear what they thought was a firecracker or gunshot going off prior to police arrival. Since they did only say it was one shot and they didn't know where it was or anything like that, officers definitely searched the area, but nothing was located. It can be very difficult to locate one casing in the street. And this call was at nighttime, so the location wise, it's very, very broad. It's very, sometimes can be very difficult to find those items of evidence. Then actually earlier that morning, officers received a call for service in that area for a bullet hole into a residence. So family woke up, noticed something, obviously a bullet hole had gone through their window. That's when we sent an evidence technician over to the scene to process it. So this is some overall photographs of the outside of the residence. The first photograph of the door and the steps right here. It's a good establishing photograph. I blocked out the physical address, but for establishing photograph, it's good to get a street sign or the numbers for the house or anything like that, just to let me know where you are within the city. And then we have the overall photographs of the house. If you can get all four corners, if not, I know it's kind of hard to sometimes get around the houses and stuff like that, but I just need an overall view of the scene, basically a 360-degree view of the scene. Then you go inside of the residence. So you go inside and then you go into where the scene actually was. You kind of take your pictures flowing into the room. So we took pictures going up the stairs and then into the room. So you'll do that, take your overalls of inside of the room. That's a couple of these depicted here within the presentation. So you'll take a couple with inside of the room. This hole did go through a little kid's room. So that is where the documentation will begin in this one. And then again, just some more overalls of the room. This is very important to obviously get to see what's inside of the room, where the evidence is located, where things are located when we arrive, and things like that. You have 4 pictures here. Try to get all 4 of the entire room, 360 degrees. I usually stand in the 4 corners and shoot to the other corner to make sure I get depict the entire room. And then this right here is actually his rough sketch of the room. So what we call this is a bird's eye view. It's similar to a floor plan. So what I kind of do is like cut the roof off at the top and then just you're looking down at everything. So it's a floor plan of the entire residence. So you have that. I believe he did the first floor and then all the bedrooms up here, as you can see. He even did kind of a 3D of the dresser, which is where the bullet was actually located and impacted. But yeah, so you would obviously document where everything is. You know, you have your closets, your rooms, your dressers, things along those lines. He also has his measurements in the top left-hand corner and his north arrow as well. So we try to do that on scene just to give us further notes to go off of. And obviously it's very good to have when I do my final presentation for court, if it needs to go to court to look at. Just some further documentation. The first photograph right here near the window, I would consider that a mid-range of the bullet hole. So it did go through that wall right there. So you have the bullet hole right there, right next to the window. You see this on the bed. It's debris from the wall that the bullet, when the bullet traveled, it obviously pushed debris out through the wall and landed onto the bed right here. So he just documented that for documentation purposes. And then up there, you have a close-up photograph with a scale of the bullet hole itself that entered into the room. And then there is a mid-range photograph of the dresser drawer. You can see the hole on the dresser drawer right there that's pulled out. So that's a good mid-range photograph, just trying to depict where it is, where the dresser is actually in the room and where the bullet hole is on the dresser drawer. And then you have a close-up photograph of the bullet hole and then the bullet hole itself. The bullet is actually lodged in the drawer. So we asked the residents there that live there if we could physically remove the drawer. So we removed the drawer, and further back at the mini lab was able to extract the bullet from the drawer itself with tools we have back at the lab. So it was a pretty good bullet. It had really nice lands and grooves. I couldn't find the picture of it, but we were able to extract it. This is also outside pictures of the house. The first one on the left is a good mid-range photograph of where the bullet hole is in relation to the window and the outside on the roof. And then you have another kind of mid-range photograph of the bullet where it was, bullet hole, and then a close-up one of where it entered into the house. So you can just kind of see how it's very important, get some fixed and permanent objects in there to locate where the window is on the scene and how it is located on the roof and where the bullet hole is in relationship to the window. So we didn't do laser trajectory or anything like this for this scene, but this is just some final phase photography you can do for certain scenes, like the shooting reconstruction photography. These are two photographs. You have the top one, obviously, without the laser. It's just the room itself. And then the bottom one is with the laser. So with that scene, we could have put a rod in, used the laser, and then done some photography to see how the bullet traveled within the bedroom and then hit the drawer. We do have those capabilities, and we have all the lasers equipped in the mini lab and the van. So that's pretty cool photography once you master that skill. And then we also have blood stain pattern analysis. We didn't need that for this scene as well. I just wanted to show you certain different things in the final phase you can utilize. With blood stain pattern analysis, this is very tedious work. You have to take several photographs of this. You have the rulers you utilize for this. You do I would consider it like a mid-range photograph, and we also do several close-up photographs of each physical stain on there. And then you can do ALS photography, which is alternate light source. That is what that photograph is right there of the fingerprint. That was, I didn't process that fingerprint, but I'm assuming it was probably super glued, and then maybe some type of dye was given to that to make it glow for ALS. But these are all stuff you do in the final phase because it is very intrusive. You're introducing a lot of stuff into the scene. So you want to make sure all evidence has been collected already. Some additional equipment we have, like I said, we have the ALS, the alternate light source. We also have dental stone for footwear impressions or tire wear impressions. You can use microsil for tool mark impressions. We have the electric static dust lifter we can utilize for shoe wear impressions as well, just in a just on dust or anything like that that's on a flat surface. We can utilize that. And the shooting reconstruction kits, like I said, with the rods and the lasers, we can utilize those as well. These are some footwear impressions. So the 2D dust impression, we would utilize the electric static dust lifter for that. So you put a piece of Mylar down and we utilize the dust lifter, and the footwear impression will adhere to the Mylar, and you flip it over and the impression will be on there. It's actually a pretty cool tool to utilize. And then you have the 3D footwear impression, which is usually in your mud and your dirt and things along those lines. So that's when we would use a dental stone to cast over that. And then the final product is the bottom picture right there, casted in the stone, and you see the difference. The cast has, you can see the footwear impression pretty well, and you can send that off to the lab for comparison to hopefully get a comparison back from the lab and whatever shoe you collected from the scene, which is actually pretty cool. So some other ones, so that is a picture of our electric static dust lifter right there. You have, this is our alternate light source, which is the hand scope. Very, very easy to use, very lightweight. That is a very good tool to utilize. Very easy to obviously transport to scenes. We have the Rufus, which I haven't utilized a lot, but that is to look at a lot of fingerprints if you're trying to finger powder process something. And that's what that helps. That is what that helps with. I haven't utilized that as much as the ALS though. Then after you've cleared the scene and collected all of your evidence, we go into the packaging and storage of the evidence. So we do take supplemental photographs of items of evidence that we do collect, not all, but if it's necessary, we do. You know, you have your clothing, you take photographs of your cartridge cases, you definitely take photographs of head stamps. And if you obviously did collect bullets, you take additional photographs of those as well. Determine if any items of evidence need to go into the drying cabinet. We don't package wet items. They will, you know, start molding and starting to smell downstairs. So we want to make sure everything is dry before we physically package all the items of evidence. Then how I learned packaging and handling is from the evidence packaging handling guide at DFS website. So we follow those policies and procedures because that's where we send everything off to the lab. So if something isn't packaged correctly, we get that back and we have to repackage it. So we try to follow those rules and guidelines in order for the items of evidence to get sent to the lab. And then once that is completed, we place the items on the temp shelf along with the evidence tags we fill out to notify Diane and Lars what the item is and what's inside that package. These are some pictures of our mini lab downstairs. We do have a fingerprint processing station. You see the black powders in there. You have some orange. We have magnetic powder in there. But yeah, if you need to fingerprint powder process anything, that's the station we do utilize. And we also, that is our drying cabinet. That is where we put, you know, the bloody clothes or any type of, if they have any type of moisture or anything like that, we hang up the clothes in the drying cabinet and hit the power button and a big blower just comes on and make sure everything gets all dry before we package it. We have a fuming chamber. If we're using any type of chemicals or anything like that that has a strong smell, we use a fuming chamber. So if we're super gluing or if we're using any type of dyes or an anhydride, we turn on the fuming chamber so it sucks the fumes out above you instead of obviously engulfing down in the mini lab. So we utilize that a lot. That is a picture of a cartridge case. That would be some supplemental photography we would utilize. That is what you call a head stamp. So, you know, for investigations purposes, it's good to know, you know, what kind of casing you have, you know, the caliber, even the type of ammunition that is utilized. And then we also have processing table downstairs. So that's where we mostly do all of our packaging and stuff like that. Sanitize the table every time in between different scenes. That's where we take our further photography as well. So that table is pretty important as well. These are just some examples, because we have a lot of different packaging material downstairs. You have a lot of different types and sizes of manila envelopes we utilize. We have definitely a lot of different sizes and types of brown paper bags. We have tubes we use for syringes or knives. We have a lot of gun boxes. We have knife boxes as well. We just try to be, you know, well equipped with what we need. We have a lot of plastic bags to put stuff in as well. But yeah, packaging material is very, very important, obviously. And then over there, we have our property and evidence tag. So you have obviously the tag number up top. You know, you write your description in there, your item, what it is, and then you just kind of follow down. You have, you know, the address where you seized, report number. So this is what we fill out to attach to the item of evidence that we have to let Diane and Lars know downstairs what's inside the package, what is it associated with, and make sure that obviously they enter it into PETs correctly. So just kind of going over what Diane and Lars do, which is our forensics unit support specialist. So every morning they come in, they'll check the temp shelves, which is what we have access to in the mini lab. And there's also evidence storage lockers, which is what patrol has access to. Patrol doesn't have access to our mini lab. Patrol will just have access to a packaging room up front and also these lockers. So they'll check the accuracy of the packaging and also the evidence tag, make sure that's all properly done. If not, they'll obviously notify the officer to come fix it. They'll then enter the information into PETS, which is our police evidence tracking system. That's how we track all items of evidence for all cases. Basically all the items of evidence we have downstairs. That's how we track our system. And then manages placing the items on the shelf in our evidence storage room. So then once they've physically entered in the items to PETS, we will then transfer all the items over into our evidence storage room, which is filled with shelves and shelves of items of evidence. So they'll locate a bin for that and place it onto the shelf. So these are just some pictures of our temporary shelves right there in the mini lab. And then those are also the temp locks that the patrol has access to. They also have in that room, they have packaging material they need to utilize or anything like that, that they'll need to package items of evidence. Because trust me, I'm not the only one who just collects all the evidence in the police department. Patrol does as well. So they have to have access to that stuff. And then the other picture is a picture of our evidence storage shelves. Like I said, this is just one room where we have evidence, and there's several different rolling shelves in there. So you see all the bins, the items of evidence that we have located in there. The lockers is where we keep our drugs and money in. Those stay separate from all the other items of evidence because we consider those to be high value. And you also have all of our guns and narcotics and paraphernalia shelves as well in this room. So high value stuff, even jewelry or anything along those lines stays in a separate room, from what we call general evidence. And then this is our second room of general evidence. So the evidence storage shelves, again, like you said, you can see, probably 6 to 7 shelves, rolling shelves in there. We have, gotten rid of a lot of evidence, especially a lot of older cases. So not all of those shelves are full. They definitely used to be. But yeah, so we're getting rid of a lot of evidence that needs to be gotten rid of. But yeah, so those are our 3 rooms where we store evidence. Just some more of what they do. They also manage what goes to the lab. So they go to DFS in Richmond is where we send all of our items of evidence to the lab. They will also check out items if we need to go to court as well. They check the accuracy of our RFLEs, which is the request for laboratory examinations. They transport, like I said, they do transport the items to the lab. They do archive cases and items of evidence as well. And they also do assist us a lot with the destructions of items of evidence if we need to. This is an example of an RFLE, which is what officers need to fill out or detectives need to fill out in order for an item to go to the lab. So they will complete this. Diane and Lars will collect all the items that need to go to the lab. They usually go, I think, once a month. They try to go, depending on the volume we have. They go down there, turn everything in, and they pick up other items that have already been processed and need to be returned back to PD as well. This other room is our case file archive room. You'll have evidence technician files in here, investigation files in here. Big cases are in here that need to be archived. And then we also have an evidence archive room as well. It could be cold cases that are in here, big homicide cases that are also in here. Just stuff that we need to hold on to further, whether it hasn't been solved or the person's still in jail or trying to appeal or something along those lines. We hold the items of evidence in those rooms to secure it. We also have gotten really good at destroying a lot of items of evidence as well. We have several ways we can do that. Biohazard, we have the biohazard boxes, if it has, blood or any type of fluid on it, we just throw it in the box and we call them maybe once a month, maybe once every couple months, depending on what we have, and they come and pick those items up for us. We also have, we place stuff that needs to be going into the burn barrel. We have a burn barrel box. That's a lot of drugs. We do actually burn our own drugs now. We have a burn barrel, as you see this picture right here. It's fairly similar to that. Heats up pretty good, and we just honestly, we go out there maybe once every 3 months, obviously depending on the volume we have and how much drugs we're destroying. We go out there and we destroy the drugs, place them into the barrel, and it heats up, and it does a really good job. And then we have the melt box, where a lot of our guns, knives, stuff like that need to be destroyed as well. We're actually destroying our own firearms now. Marshall has gotten approval to do that, so he's written the policy and procedures for all that. So we do those as well within the unit. This is just a quote that I like putting at the end of presentations. You guys can read it, for yourself, but it's kind of, it's very important. You walk into crime scenes and you don't think you're leaving anything behind, but you really are, whether it's, a footwear impression or, your fingerprints or your DNA, or, you don't think you're losing hair, but you could put some hair in the crime scene as well. Skin, anything can happen. You're walking into that crime scene and you're contaminating it in some way or fashion. So you just got to make sure you're obviously either, you have the booties on, or, you have a full suit to make sure you're protecting yourself so you're not entering anything into the crime scene. This also is important for us as well as processing wise. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for the footwear impressions. We're looking for the fingerprints. We're looking for the hair and the fibers. This is everything that we need to be looking for. Glass break, we're looking for the glass to compare to, if we find a suspect with glass in a shoe, we can send that off to the lab and hopefully get a comparison with that. That puts him at the crime scene. So that's very, very important for us. We're just trying to tie, I think I have, yes, the evidence linkage triangle. So we're trying to link the crime scene to the suspect back to the crime scene, or the crime scene to the victim. We're trying to link all of these things together to basically hopefully get, a confession, or obviously good prosecution from the scene. So yeah, we're trying to link all of these together and by evidence wise. So this is how I follow the crime scene and what I'm looking for, basically to put the suspect away. Like I said, it's all done by evidence on our end. Investigations kind of, they get the confessions, they do the follow-ups, all of those things. We all play our definitely important roles, whether it's, patrol arriving first, getting all the information from the victim, the reporting parties, all that, even securing the crime scene. And then we will come in, determine what evidence is important to collect and what not to collect. And then investigations will come in and hopefully speak with the victim further, get further information along those lines, we all work together. It's definitely a team effort. I always say teamwork makes the dream work. So we're always usually all trying to work together, and communication is obviously very key for this. I probably talk pretty fast, but yeah, that's basically my job in a nutshell. That's how I process crime scenes every single time. Each crime scene is different, but I follow these steps. If I have questions, I have contacts I reach out to at DFS, packaging wise. Sergeant Marshall is very good. He has a lot of good training as well. I also try to go to training throughout the year to keep up to date with things. But yeah, so this is how I process crime scenes. If you guys have any questions, let me know.
Jill, thank you. That was really interesting and very complicated, your work. There are a few questions. The first question is a simple one. What evidence gets destroyed?
Honestly, it could be really anything, fingerprints. If victims don't want clothing back, we'll get rid of the clothing that we collected. Drugs, if it's not of evidentiary value, we get rid of that stuff. It's based off of what the case agent wants to get destroyed. And we also talk a lot with the Commonwealth attorney, and what they want us to destroy along those lines, because if we kept everything, we would be running out of room. So we have to get rid of stuff. Like I said, if it is personal values of an individual, we try to get in contact with them as best we can. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, so we do go ahead and get rid of it. But we make our best efforts for sure down there.
Okay. And so another question, how many people and how long does it take to process a large, complicated crime scene like a homicide or a large shooting?
So we did, I'm sure hopefully a lot of people did hear about the large shooting that we had on JPA I think it was a couple weekends ago. I was not on call that weekend, so I didn't get the pleasure of getting called out at 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever it happened. He called out probably at least 3 people, and I think we had probably 3 technicians already working on scene. So we had over 100 casings. That one took, I would say, at least 8+ hours on that, and that was just a shooting. Like, I know this is there was no decedent on scene, so there was no body to process as well, because that can take another couple of hours contacting the ME, measuring the body, all of those things, because if they're going down to Richmond, the transport unit comes all the way from Richmond, picks up from Charlottesville, and comes all the way back. So that takes at least an hour and a half for them to get there. So big scenes, 8+ hours, but if you're talking about a homicide, it could be days. So we could, keep security on those scenes for days and days and days. The Aldridge homicide over there on Rugby, that one was days of being kept. So it just varies.
Okay, all right, thank you. So another question, do you testify in court? If not, are you routinely informed of the outcome of cases you've processed? That is, do you find out who done it, the verdict, and everything that goes on along with that, or do you follow up yourself when you're interested?
I do testify in court. I get very nervous. Public speaking is not my thing, but yes, I do testify in court when I need to. Those are usually the major cases. I will tell you, a lot when I was in patrol, just because I was on the patrol side, I didn't know a lot what happened with the cases I processed. A lot of the shootings, I didn't know where they went, what happened to them, because I was more focused on my patrol aspects, answering calls for service. So I couldn't really follow up on the major cases I was processing. But now that I'm up here in investigations and around all of these awesome people every day, I hear like what's going on, what search warrants are they getting and utilizing, hey, Jill, we need you to do the search warrant on the house. It's just a lot of way more follow-up I'm involved in up here than I was in patrol. But yes, I do testify. I do hear a lot more of where the cases do go up here than I was in patrol. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. It sounds really interesting. Okay, here's another question. First, it's a thank you for your time and for coming today. And then the question is, how long will collected forensic evidence be stored when, the example is hearing of cases that have been resolved, when it comes back? What do you do? I mean, the evidence is gone and there's requests for more information.
Maybe I'll talk about the lab aspect of it. Let's say it is getting sent to the lab, casings or DNA or fingerprints. Unfortunately, we're not an hour-long CSI show, so that can take up to months to get that stuff back. So you send something to the lab, unfortunately, it can take up 3 to 6 months to get that lab certificate back, to see, what it's compared to, or if it is a suspect's DNA, anything along those lines. Now, big cases, we have reached out to the Commonwealth attorney and we've reached out to the DFS lab to push the lab to do ours first, like put our case on top, because it is very, very important. And that got returned back in a couple days, I would say, maybe even a week. So that's obviously a lot shorter time frame, but you just have to have a significant reason for that. Unfortunately, Richmond deals with all surrounding jurisdictions. So they don't just deal with us. That's why everything takes so long. And even sometimes our evidence will be sent to the other labs to further along that process. So yeah, it can take up to a long time. Now, if they're talking along the lines of destroying evidence, a case can be finished, but they have, I think it's up to a year to appeal, depending on what the case is. But after that year, it's been resolved, not appealing, depending on the severity of the case, we can get rid of stuff. We'll start contacting victims or starting to get rid of evidence. If the Commonwealth is agreeing upon it and the case agent agrees it's not a significant value anymore, we can go ahead and get rid of it.
Okay. All right. Last question. What is the weirdest or most ridiculous crime scene you've ever had to process?
Oh, the weirdest. I guess I'll kind of go into this. I wouldn't say weirdest. I mean, my job is a hard job for the common person, I would say. You know, I see a lot. I'll tell you, I've worked everything from infant deaths all the way to, you know, elderly people. So with my job, it is very difficult about what I see every day. You know, you got to learn to cope with that. I'll tell you right now, I go to the gym a lot. I love the gym. So that's definitely a release for me. But, you know, weirdest, to me, they all have a certain significant value in all of them. You know, like I said, whether it's the infants, you know, processing B&Es, people, I mean, your home was invaded by somebody, and, you know, that victim is obviously very scared and hurt. Like I said, the deaths as well, you know, they lost a family member, you know, you have to deal with that. You know, you have to collect evidence from them. But yeah, the weirdest, I don't know, but it's definitely a lot I've seen hard wise with this job that, you know, I love every day doing my job. I like collecting that evidence that'll put the suspect away. It's very important. Investigations will get the confession. I'll get your fingerprint on the desk. You know what I mean? So that's what I really like doing with this job. So you can't fight that.
Well, it's very evident that
Yeah.
you really enjoy your job and that you're very good at it. Jill, thank you very much. This has been so interesting. And I don't think there are any more questions, so we'll end. And I know that you have a meeting. The next Lunch and Learn is scheduled for May 18th, and the topic is community policing, which, especially these days, is such a critical component of law enforcement. And that will be presented by Sergeant Eric Thomas. I did want to say that next Wednesday, there is a free to the community presentation at the Jefferson School. It can be found on our website. It is the Mental Health Awareness Campaign Kickoff, and there will be several presenters, including Tom Van Emert from our CIT unit at CPD. So I encourage, you know, all are welcome. I encourage you to attend. Albemarle County Police Foundation, Charlottesville Police Foundation are both sponsors of the event. And so contact me if you have want more information, or go to the website and sign up. So thank you for coming. We'll see you the next time. Thanks a lot, Jill.
Thank you.